My name is Donal Boyd, and I'm a wildlife conservationist and portrait photographer. I was originally born in the United States, and I grew up in the Northeast, in Boston. Now I live between Iceland and Southern Africa, and currently right now I'm in Namibia. My formal education is actually in chemical engineering, so I have 2 degrees in engineering, a bachelor's and a master's degree in chemical engineering. My goal as an engineer or as a scientist was always to try to understand nature and to try to develop a way that other people can understand it also in the same way. Photography had always been a way for me to express that connection that I have with nature, connect with other people through a visual form of communication rather than just the equations and the numbers and the crazy ecology that I would try to understand as an engineer or as a scientist. And I think photography is an incredible tool to be able to connect with other people through how you see the world. My approach to photography is to not just stop at the actual photograph that I capture in the camera, but to bring the story of myself into it. So my connection with the actual subject itself, whether it's an African wild dog that I've spent months with, that I've seen literally the first moments that it came out of its den site, or an orangutan that I've spent days with in Borneo, and the context around their forest being destroyed is what I'm trying to bring into the way that I photograph wildlife. And the biggest thing is not that it doesn't just stop at the actual photograph, but it goes beyond that with the way that I edit my photographs. What I've started recently is an organization called Behind the Scenes of Nature, and my partner Naude Heunis, he's a South African guy. He and I have been working together for several years now on conservation projects throughout sub-Saharan Africa, and we've been documenting the people that actually protect and restore nature. And because we've worked with a lot of different organizations and have documented their stories in their own way, we've decided that now we want to take our own approach to actually sharing these stories, sharing the true reality, like the tough stuff that actually goes on behind the scenes to literally save these amazing ecosystems that are threatened all around the world. I use whatever is most practical for the purpose of the photograph that I have in mind. If I want to create an enormous photograph that is going to be hung in a gallery that is significant and has a special depth of field look to it, I'm going to use a Phase 1 medium format camera because I want that special look. I want the process that's behind it. So the Phase 1 camera system is one of my favorite systems to use because it slows you down. It's not really the fastest out there, but it's something that it engages you with your intuition. And I think a lot of people must assume that I have a lot of patience in photography, in my photography of wildlife, but it's actually the intuition that is the most important factor in my photography. Now, it doesn't work in a lot of situations, of course, but if I want something a lot more rugged and a lot more practical for, say, hanging out of a vehicle, then I'm going to use an Olympus camera because of the crop factor with micro four thirds and their super crazy image stabilization. Just whatever is most practical for the particular purpose or the look that I actually want to achieve. Editing is, I would say, the most important factor in finalizing the message that I want to communicate. Photography is subjective to begin with because I choose where I want to point the camera and what I want to point it at. So why stop there? I think that it's incredibly important to connect that entire self of what actually is it that I really did focus on. One of the most significant moments that I can remember in the past years is a moment on the river in the jungle in the middle of Borneo. It was this massive male who had been off in the forest for most of the day, and he had finally come in to check out what all the commotion was about. We were just hanging out by this group on the riverside, and he'd come up to see who we were and what we were doing. And the way that he actually paraded around, the way that he stood, it was almost in a way to relate to us hey, I know exactly why you guys are here. I know what your purpose is, and I have something to say. None of us really knew how to speak afterward. I'm actually getting goosebumps because I'm thinking about the way that he looked at us and the way that he stood so proud and tall to be seen by everyone else. This character that stands out so significantly, and he can't speak, but he wants to, and this image is a way for him to speak. to say like, this is who I am, and this is the place that I live, and hopefully it at least sparks the curiosity necessary to get people to look a little bit more into it. Just push it further. Just go beyond what you think is the boundary. There really is no such thing as boundaries. They're only conventions waiting to be transcended. You just have to imagine it's possible in the first place.
Show you on camera.
Yeah. Well, they're called corn crickets, and there's about 1 billion of them here.